Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson, and with this edition, I'm going to go over, kind of highlight some of my main players in terms of who's going, who's coming, all that. There's some players who are transferring out or who have declared for the NFL draft, and there are some seniors returning. This is a kind of obviously a new thing with the NCAA grading that blanket eligibility waiver, where basically guys can, played without having to lose a season of eligibility last year, no matter what their classification were, and definitely seniors. So there are some seniors playing a second senior season this year, and actually 9 of them announced that they are returning to Texas Tech. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But also, Texas added a junior college player here just recently, some guys through the transfer portal. So I want to talk about all of that, at least highlight some of my main guys instead of listing all the guys. Let's start with those 9 seniors returning. 3 guys that really stand out to me that I'm really excited about is Colin Schooler at linebacker, Rico Jeffers also at linebacker, and then DeMarcus Fields, cornerback. All 3 of those guys are 3 of your best players. They're all returning. They're 3 of 7 senior starters returning. So I think this is huge in terms of wins and losses this upcoming season. And obviously this coaching staff is definitely operating under the win now circumstance. So, Colin Schooler obviously had that big play, that big hit on Charlie Brewer, but I think overall he helped Tech with several things. I mean, just his tackling ability, especially once he settled in and, found his role, just being a sure tackler, his instincts, and I think playing with the edge. He definitely played with the edge that him and Jacob Morgenstern is also returning. Both those guys play with just kind of toughness and meanness that I think this defense really needed. Rico Jeffers is a guy who I've actually kind of been disappointed in up until last season. And, he didn't get a redshirt year. He played as a true freshman. And I think he could have really benefited from a redshirt freshman. And in effect, that's what this will end up being was, the year he benefits from getting that redshirt year or the extra year of eligibility. And, I thought he played very, very well last year. I mean, he came on, took a huge step forward. And I think before injuries really slowed him, even cost him at least the last game of the season, he was playing at an all Big 12 level. He was playing very, very good football. So, man, those 2 guys there at linebacker, along with Morgenstern, you got to feel really good about that position. And then, like I said, DeMarcus Fields, I've been a fan of his really since before he even signed. I just always thought he was a good football player, all-around football player, even coming out of high school. And I think, he's made a lot of plays for Texas Tech. I mean, he's been through some bad years for this defense, but I think he's been a standout on some bad defenses. And I think last year was the case. I think, he missed the first game at least of last year, this past season. But once he settled in and he came back, the defense really improved. I mean, he made a difference in that secondary. Him and Zach McPherson, who has declared for the NFL, and this might be a good segue to the next list of players, but DeMarcus Fields and McPherson were one of the best duos at cornerback that Texas Tech had in a long time. So, speaking of players leaving, yes, Zach McPherson, first team All Big 12 performer, has declared for the NFL draft. He has left the program, and I can understand that. I don't know how much better he's going to grade out. So I don't know where he's going to be selected in the NFL draft, but he came up with a lot of timely turnovers. He's had to put in 2 good years as a grad transfer from Penn State at Texas Tech. Played very well, and I wish him the best moving forward. Texas Tech is bringing in some guys. I'll get to that here in a minute. Texas Tech's bringing in some guys via the transfer portal to kind of fill in some gaps from some players who have left, so they can stay old, still compete at a high level while they develop some of the younger players. Another guy leaving who, I've mentioned him before, being a big loss, is Jack Anderson. Jack Anderson's a guy who obviously is one of the highest rated recruits ever to sign with Texas Tech, and certainly of the modern era. He's a Red Raider legacy. A lot of families going to Texas Tech. He started for, I believe, 4 years. One of those years, the previous season, not the 2019 season, he was injured a lot. He missed a lot of the season, but he started every game last year. I personally feel like he was a very good player. There's a lot of people who said he was overrated, but there were some games I can remember several games where he stood out, and Texas Tech ran the ball right behind him with great success. And I think there's a lot of potential for Jack Anderson at the next level. So I understand why he's leaving, and certainly just like with Zach, I wish him all the success in the world. Another guy I want to mention. Now, this is not to go to the NFL draft straight away. This is through the transfer portal. And this is one of Texas Tech's most talented guys on the roster. But Keyshawn Carter transferred to Houston. So, I mean, it was wham, bam. He announced he was transferring. And then pretty soon after he hit the transfer portal, he announced he was committed to Houston. So, I mean, he's from the Woodlands, so obviously the area. And it's disappointing. I hear my things on Keyshawn Carter. It's disappointing that you lost him because he is a very good talent. But then on the other hand, if there's a position the Red Raiders transfer well to consistently, it's receiver. So he should be somewhat easy to replace. But then again, he was one of your more talented guys on offense, so you hate to see him go. You hate to see him go to a team that you're going to play in the opener next season as well. So that'll be crazy to see him suited. He won't be the only guy, but he'll be, I think, one of the most talked about guys who is suited up for Houston when you take them on there in Houston. So, and I think that's at NRG Stadium too. So that'll be an interesting game, an interesting way to kick off the season. So I teased, about the guys that they're bringing in via the transfer portal, and I want to mention them right now. All right, so first off, I want to mention cornerback because as I said, Zach McPherson has declared to the NFL draft, so there's a hole there. Malik Dunlap was the first guy through the transfer portal to commit to Texas Tech after National Signing Day in December. So Tech signed their 10 high school guys, which I'll get to here last but not least, in the early period. And then they've since picked up commits from 3 transfers via the transfer portal. Also a junior college commit in Matt Keeler, which was the most recent commit. But then Malik Dunlap is a 6'4" cornerback. 6'4" cornerback from NC State. He started double-digit games. He has double-digit deflections in his career. He is a physical guy, as you imagine, at 6'4", but obviously with cover skills. So, you could use that physicality in the secondary and just on your defense in general for Texas Tech. And I think Dunlap, that's a really exciting addition there. Another guy who's really exciting is Marcus Waters, a safety. He's going to replace Thomas Leggett, who also has left the program. He declared for the NFL draft. Waters is a 3-4 year starter at Duke. Very productive safety. 6 foot, 200 plus pounds. He's just a guy who's always around the ball. Another playmaker. He's the closest thing that I've seen Texas Tech add through the transfer portal to Colin Schooler. What I mean, like a type of borderline, well, Schooler was an all-conference player, but Waters was borderline like all-ACC. He was a very good player for Duke. So this is a huge addition for the Red Raiders in the secondary. I mean, their secondary all of a sudden, from a talent standpoint, is looking nice. I mean, him matched up with Eric Monroe, who had an up-and-down season, but I think with a full year in the program, and he's coming back for another senior year, I think those two guys will be quite the duo at safety. That'll be two of the better safeties starting next to each other in recent Texas Tech memory. So that's really good. And then at linebacker, just to add some depth, Florida transfer Josiah Pierre, somewhat recently committed to the Red Raiders. He has 4 years of eligibility remaining. He was playing some, not starting, but he was playing some as a redshirt freshman for the Gators, top 10 Gators team. So it's really exciting, really talent upgrade through the transfer portal. And like I mentioned, you got Keeler coming in, the 6'6", 290-pound offensive lineman through the junior college ranks. So Texas Tech is off and running in terms of adding to the roster from the guys they lost. They lost around a dozen guys, whether it be the transfer portal or going pro. So, but then don't forget the high school guys. This is the old school type of recruiting, right? Going to the high school ranks. I think that's still most people's desired way or source to mine talent. So 10 isn't a high number; it's very low, and Tech's recruiting ranking is going to be low because of that. But the quality, and you've heard me say this a lot, the quality of the recruits is very high. It's in the top half of the Big 12. And that all starts with quarterback Baron Morton. 4-star guy, elite 11 guy, around a top 100 national prospect. Dual threat. He's listed as a pro style. He's a dual threat. Ran for almost 1,000 yards, 20 touchdowns this past year. Great arm, though. It really excels throwing on the run. And he is going to enroll this semester and this upcoming spring semester, and if there is a spring ball, assuming there is going to be, he'll be able to compete in that, and I think he's going to compete for the starting spot as a true freshman. I really think that's a reality. So we'll have to see how he does when he comes in, how he adjusts to the speed of the game and all that. But there's some other guys on offense I want to mention. Cameron Valdez is a borderline 4-star running back who I'm really excited about. They normally don't get running backs at his caliber, so he can do it all. As Coach Will said on National Signing Day, run with power, speed, great vision, great cutback ability. I like him a lot. And then Jerand Bradley, I think, is the least talked about guy. I think just because Tech is so used to getting higher rated receivers in comparison to other positions, but 6'5", 200 pounds, was a guy who was highly rated when he was at private school at John Paul there in Plano, but he went to DeSoto and did very well against higher level competition. And Tech had to fend off a lot of schools for him down the stretch, and I'm excited to get him in the offense. And then I want to mention the tight ends real quick. Jed Castles, a Wichita Falls Rider, is a matchup problem. And so is Mason Tharp, also out of Klein High School. Those two tight ends, about 6'7", 6'6", 225. I think they'll be like 240 by the time next season starts. So they're going to push like Travis Kuntz and John Holcomb and some of those guys for playing time, because I really think they're receiving threats that Texas Tech has been looking for. So there's a lot coming and going, and trust me, this is just the beginning. There's going to be more. I look for Tech to still look to add defensive backs, offensive line, defensive line, and probably quarterback if they find the right fit. So that's just through the transfer portal and junior college ranks. So it's going to be interesting as we continue through this offseason and the roster turnover continues. But keep it to Inside the Red Raiders for the latest from the recruiting trail. And with that, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.